Welcome to the Creo Parametric tutorial series. My name is Lucas. I am a CAD technician and a drafting instructor, and I'm going to be walking you through this introductory series for Creo Parametric 7.0. In this first video, we're not going to do any projects. We are just going to go through the absolute basics. I'm going to assume that this is your first time working in any kind of CAD software. So we're going to go through organization, setting up working directories. We're going to look at the screen layout, what the different mouse buttons are going to do, and just how to start a project. So let's get started. And actually, before we get started inside of Creo, we're actually going to want to start in File Explorer. So let's go ahead and go to our File Explorer. One thing to know about CAD files in general is that your CAD files will very quickly become chaos. Within just a few projects, it's going to become more and more difficult to actually find what you're looking for. So to that end, what we'd like to do is set up a folder structure ahead of time and really try to stick to it to keep our projects organized. And the easiest way to do that, like I said, is here in File Explorer, is just to set up a folder structure, which is what I'm going to do here. You can see I've already created my Creo 7 folder in my documents, and I'm just going to start creating folders here. This first one we'll call Introduction, and we can set up as many as we need. The next video we're going to be doing an adjuster. Actually, I don't like that name. Let's just call it video 2. That way anything we do from the next video we can save in here. But you get where I'm going with this. You can take the time to create all of the folders that you're going to need all at once, or you can create them as the need arises. Really, it's up to you. Just really take the time to do it and stay organized up front. So now that we have our folder structure started, we can go ahead and go back to Creo. Now when you open Creo for the first time, this is what's going to pop up. The first window here is Creo's Resource Center. Inside this window, you're going to find links for support, their help center, their own tutorials, which are in fact very helpful. Go check those out, as well as a link to the Creo forums. A lot of good information in here. Feel free to browse at your leisure. The next window is actually Creo's web browser. And it defaults to this first page here, the PTC Manufacturer CAD portal. Clicking on this link will take you to different suppliers that will actually have CAD models available for you to download for common parts. Very, very good resource here. However, not something that we're interested in at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and close that as well. And that brings us to our main start page for Creo. So let's take a look at some of the different things that you're going to see on your screen here. First, up here at the top should look like most apps nowadays. Most apps have adopted the quick access toolbar and the ribbon toolbar as their default, which is nice because now all apps kind of have a very familiar feel to them. So up here at the top you have your quick access toolbar. It's got your basics in there right now, your new, open, Windows. This one, once you start having multiple projects going, you can click on this and quickly switch between different windows. And then you have your drop down here to customize the quick access toolbar. More commands, move it around. The more commands we will use once we get into projects. All right, below that is your ribbon toolbar. Now, right now, this is just the essentially the welcome screen. So all that's going to be here right now is the file ribbon, just your basic file options, and your home ribbon. Once we get into a project, this ribbon toolbar will fill up with all kinds of different ribbons. But for now, this is all we've got. Now, off to the left here, this is your navigator and your browser. You can browse through your file explorer here. Your model tree won't become available until we get into a project. Then your favorites folder here. Now down here at the bottom, got your status bar. You can show your browser. Just that window that we started with. And then here is your message area. The message area is overlooked a lot. In fact, I have a tendency to forget it's there until I get stuck. And really that's what it's there for. That message area, right now you can see it just says welcome to Creo, but it's going to tell you what it's expecting next. It's going to tell you what error may have just occurred. So anytime you get stuck, you're not quite sure what to do next, or you've tried to do something and it's not working quite the way you think it should be working, or just didn't work at all, don't forget to look down here in your message area. Chances are that there's going to be something down there pointing you in the right direction. So with all that being said, let's start a new project. Now the very first thing you want to do before you start this new project is you want to select your working directory. Selecting your working directory, it's your button right here. This is going to tell Creo where to save all of your files, where to open all of your files. It's basically saying, this is the folder that I want to work out of today. And this is why we set that folder structure up ahead of time. Now we can navigate to any one of those folders that we created. Click OK. And now anything that we do will be dropped into that introduction folder. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and start our new project. So to do that, we're going to go over here and click New. And that's going to bring a pop-up here that allows us to select the type of project that we're going to work on and a subtype in some cases. The types here, we're going to use quite a few of these throughout this series. Sketch is just to create a sketch file. It's not a drawing, it's what it is. It's just a sketch that you can insert into different areas. Part is what we're going to use the majority of the time. This is where you start your solid modeling. Assembly, we will get to later in the series. Assembly files is where you take different part files and assemble them as one larger item. Manufacturing, we will not cover in this series. The manufacturing type, that's going to be used more for CAD/CAM applications. And that's not something we're going to get into here. Drawing, this is where you will set up 2D blueprints, and we will do some of that in this series. Format is where you can actually set up your drawing sheets. You can set up, we'll actually do that, some of that this series. We'll set up a border and a title block to be used in our drawings. But like I said, part, that's going to be primarily what we use throughout this series. Once you have your type, you'll be able to select a subtype. Most of the time we're going to be using solid. This is where we just create a solid model. We will do some sheet metal work. You can start in sheet metal, or you can actually start in solid and convert it to sheet metal. Yeah, but we'll deal with that when we get there. But this is where we're going to land here. And then Creo does also force you to create the file name before you can go any further. Now, this is where you want to have a naming scheme already set up before you get started. For me, I have a general part numbering scheme that I always use that we're going to go ahead and use for this tutorial series. Come up with your own, do things however you want. But the way I like to do it, my part numbers always start 236. And then we're going to use chapter numbers. This is an introductory chapter, so we'll use 00. And then the last two digits are the project number. And for this one, again, this is just an introductory one, so I'm again going to use 0, 0. And then underscore, and then I'll type in whatever the part is going to be. Now, do keep in mind, do note here, Creo does not allow spaces in the file name, which is why you'll see underscores and dashes in all of my file names. Once you have your file name typed in, you can leave this checked if you want. I believe it will default to inches, but I always make a habit of unchecking this, and it'll bring up your new file options. The reason I uncheck that is it forces me to really think about what units I'm getting ready to use. It's very easy to get it. It's very easy to just leave the default on and get in and just get to work. But doing that, you run the risk of getting partway through a project and all of a sudden you realize that you're supposed to be using millimeters, but you've been modeling in inches this entire time. Now you've got to convert everything. It's much easier just to handle it from the beginning. So this will give you all of your different template options. For this one, we are going to use the default for this one, but it's the inches, pounds, part solid. For millimeters, you would just come down here, same kind of thing, just millimeters instead. Again, we're going to stay in inches for this, and click OK. And that's going to drop us into our 3D space. Now, as you can see, now that we've started a project, our quick access toolbar has filled in quite a bit, and our ribbon toolbar has filled in quite a bit. We now have quite a few more options to work with. In addition to that, we now have access to our model tree. Our model tree we'll go over in a lot more detail in upcoming videos. But for now, all you need to know is it's going to give you what your part is. It's going to show all of your work planes, and it's going to show your UCS, or your Universal Coordinate System. And this is also any sketches or features that you create, they will also start populating here in your model tree. Now, out here in the middle, these squares, these are your work planes. Again, these coincide with the work planes that are listed over here in your model tree. Your right side plane, you can see the right plane here, it highlighted. Your top plane, same one here, and your front plane will be right here. And you're going to get to know how to work with these work planes again in upcoming videos. And then your UCS, basically this is, you want to put coordinates to it. This is 0, 0, 0. This is the absolute origin of your 3D space. Now, before we go any further, something I like to do every time I start a project, I have 2 settings that I like to change. Now, this is personal preference. If you don't care for these, you don't have to use them. But for me, these are essential. Up here in our quick access toolbar, we're going to click our drop down and we're going to go to more commands. And that's going to bring up our option window. Now I've got, like I said, I've got 2 options that I like to change every time I start a project. The first one is in model display. Right here, your default model orientation, it starts off in trimetric. Personally, I do not like trimetric. For me, it's more difficult to really get a good look at the object in trimetric. For me, I prefer isometric. So I always change this here to isometric. Again, personal preference. Use whatever view you want. You can even come in here and do a user-defined view and set it up to something totally different. But this is how I like it. And the other option is here under Sketcher. Scroll down. Right here under Sketcher Startup, make the sketching plane parallel to the screen. This is a great option to have checked. What this is going to do, and this will make more sense If you're not sure what I'm talking about, this will make more sense once we start actually creating sketches. Is when you start your sketcher, it's going to rotate that work plane to be parallel with your screen. So you're creating a two-dimensional sketch in what appears to be two-dimensional space. You can do it manually, but this just makes it so it does it automatically for you. And once you click OK, it'll give you the option to create a configuration file. Feel free to do that if you'd like. Personally, I don't. I like to start with default settings, but that's just because as a drafting instructor, I like to be able to know where to find all of these options, and forcing myself to change them every time really keeps them in the forefront of my brain. So that's why I don't create configuration files, but feel free to if you'd like. All right, now that we're out of that, you can see our view here has changed quite a bit. We are now in isometric view instead of trimetric view. And all isometric view is, it's essentially a 30-degree view of the front, top, and right planes. So if you've got, right here, you've got our front plane, our right plane, and our top plane. So if there's an object here, we would be looking at that intersection of all those three planes at a 30-degree angle. It's the best way I can explain it. And for me, it's the best way to view an object in 3 dimensions. All right, so next, let's talk about your mouse. If you don't have a 3-button mouse, and by that I mean you've got a left click, you've got a right click, and you've got a middle mouse button or a mouse wheel. If you don't have one of those, get one. It's technically you can work without one, but it's really difficult. A lot of what we're going to do within Creo is going to involve using that middle mouse button. So again, if you don't have a mouse with 3 buttons, 2 buttons and a mouse wheel, please get one. So your mouse buttons, your left click button is going to work just like you would expect it to. Select menus, icons, pick graphic entities. That's what I'm doing here when I'm clicking on all these planes. I'm using my left click button. Your right click generally works like you would expect. You come over here and right click. It's going to bring up your selection window. However, one thing to note, out here in your 3D space, you can't just right click. You have to hold the right click, and then your menu here will pop up for you. So always keep that in mind. If you're out here in 3D space, you've got to hold that right click to get it to come up. Now, your middle mouse button is a very important button. It does quite a bit. Your mouse wheel is going to be your zoom. You can scroll to zoom out, scroll to zoom in. You can also hold control and hold the middle mouse button down. That will also zoom in and out. Let me highlight one of these so you can see it better. There we go. It'll zoom in and out like that. Or you can hold shift, hold down your middle mouse button, and you can pan. Or without pressing any button, you can just hold that middle mouse button down, and that is how you're going to orbit around your 3D model. In addition to all of that, your middle mouse button is also used to accept settings, to cycle through prompts, to exit out of tools. Quite a bit is done with that middle mouse button. All right, then a couple other things really quickly to look at. We're here under File. We're going to come down to Prepare and up to Model Properties. This is going to bring up our little Model Properties window. This is where, if you forgot to change your units, you can come in here and change your units. You can change the accuracy of those units. You've got a bunch of relations, features and geometry, a bunch of tools, a bunch of different properties that you can adjust here. In here, you can also rename the file that you're working on, and a bunch of other things we're not going to get into today. But the other thing is our search function over here. This search is invaluable. This is a command search. If there's a tool that you're looking for and you just cannot remember where it is, just start typing it in here. If I can't remember where extrude is, I can just start typing extrude. It's going to come up here. And as I hover over it, you can see, here's my tool. As I hover over it, it's actually going to highlight for me where that tool is. Or I can just click it here and it's going to start that tool for me. So again, right over here, your search bar, if you can't remember the tool that you're looking for or where the tool is you're looking for, just start typing it in over here and Creo will find it for you. And I think with that, we're going to call that a day. In the next video, we are going to start some modeling fundamentals. We're going to create 2D sketches. We're going to start some basic extrusions, and we're going to create a basic three-dimensional model. I'll see you then.